The air in the docking umbilical was cold and carried the metallic tang of recycled atmosphere. He stood before the airlock door, his pack slung over one shoulder, the sum total of his life aboard the station, now condensed into a single, nondescript bag. Behind him lay the humming, rust-colored corridors of the outpost K-7X. Ahead, through the small viewport, the sleek lines of the human freighter Odyssey's run waited, ready to carry him back to the core systems. Away from this fringe sector for good, he was a liaison, his assignment finished. 2 standard years of mediating trade agreements and minor cultural misunderstandings between the humans and the Stellaran Compact were complete. His reports were filed. His goodbyes, the polite and formal kind, were said. He had spoken with the station commander, a few of the human engineers, the Compact's trade overseer. It had been routine, professional, utterly forgettable. He was already mentally light years away. He reached for the cycle button on the airlock. The soft chime of the door behind him made him pause. He turned. She stood there, silhouetted against the corridor's warm light. She was one of the human engineers, one of the quiet ones who preferred the company of thruster diagnostics to social gatherings. He had spoken to her perhaps a dozen times, always about reactor output or coolant flow rates. Her work coveralls were smudged with carbon, her hands bearing faint, shiny scars that spoke of a life spent fixing things that were broken. Her eyes, a color like the sky of his homeworld in its brief summer, were fixed on him. They held a look he could not decipher, a turbulence that seemed at odds with her usual calm precision. She took a step forward, the door hissing shut behind her, leaving them in the muted light of the umbilical. The distant thrum of the station's life support was the only sound. She said, "May I ask you something before you leave?" And his heart nearly stopped. It was not the question, but the way she asked it. The formality was human, but the tone was strained, raw, as if the words were being pulled from a deep place. It carried a weight that a simple technical inquiry could never hold. He felt a strange lurch in his chest, a physiological response he had no name for. "Of course," he said, his voice sounding oddly calm to his own ears. She did not speak immediately. She looked at her boots, then out the viewport at the freighter, then back at him. "The others," she began, her voice softer now. "The ones you worked with most? The commander, the diplomats. They think of us as... what? Loud? Illogical? Emotionally unstable? A young species? Trying too hard?" He blinked. It was not what he expected. "They are observations," he said carefully. "Not judgments. Your species is energetic. Your social structures are complex and sometimes contradictory." "It is noted." "Noted," she repeated, a faint, sad smile touching her lips. "And what about you? What did you note?" He considered. His training urged him toward diplomatic neutrality, but something in her gaze demanded honesty. "I noted," he said slowly, "that humans are paradoxes. You build beautiful, delicate music and engines of tremendous destruction with the same hands. You speak of individual freedom, yet will sacrifice yourselves for a stranger. You fear the dark, so you fill it with lights you send to the stars. It is fascinating." She nodded, absorbing this. "And is that all? Just fascinating? Like a peculiar specimen under glass?" "No," he said, and the truth of it surprised him. "Not just. I have seen your engineers work for 40 hours straight to repair a compact freighter's drive, not because of a contract, but because the crew had families waiting. I have seen a medic cry over an injured compact child she had never met before. This depth of feeling, it is not illogical. It is a different kind of logic, one we, my people, have perhaps forgotten." He fell silent, worried he had said too much. His people valued control, order, the serene progression of a life without disruptive peaks and valleys. Human emotionality was seen as a fascinating but dangerous flaw. She took another step closer. Now he could see the faint dusting of freckles across her nose, the tiny lines of weariness at the corners of her eyes. "You leave in 10 minutes, she stated. "Yes. And you will write your final report. And you will go back to your quiet, ordered world. And you will think of us sometimes as those loud, fascinating creatures on the edge of known space." He had no answer. That was exactly what would happen. Her next words were barely a whisper, but they seemed to echo in the narrow tube. "What if I don't want you to go?" The air left the room. The thrum of the life support faded into a distant buzz. He could only stare. This was beyond protocol, beyond any cultural training module. This was a direct personal gravitational pull, and he felt himself tilting on his axis. My assignment is concluded," he managed, the weakest of all possible statements. "I know," she said. Her eyes were bright, glistening. "I know about assignments and duty and the proper way of things. I have read the cultural briefs, too. Your people value the harmony of the whole. Personal desire is a ripple that must be smoothed. To ask someone to stay, to even express the want, it is considered a profound disruption, an imposition." He gave a slight, stiff nod. It was accurate. "Then I am being profoundly disruptive," she said, and a single tear traced a clean path through the smudge on her cheek. "Because for 2 years I have watched you. I have listened to you explain stellar cartography to a group of enthralled children. I saw you patiently sit with old man Renfield while he complained about the recyclers, just because he was lonely. I noticed you always returned your tray to the sanitizer, even when no one was looking. I watched you stand in the observation deck for hours, just looking at the nebula with an expression. I just wanted to understand that expression." He was trembling. He could feel it in his hands. No one had ever seen him like this. On his world, to be so observed would be an intrusion. Here, it felt like being seen for the first time. "Why?" The word escaped him, a broken thing. "Because you are not like the others either," she said. "You have a stillness, but it's not empty. It's like you are feeling everything so deeply, you have to hold very, very still to contain it. And I think maybe you are as lonely as I am. But your loneliness is quiet. Ours is loud." The truth of it was a physical blow. The careful containment of a lifetime cracked. He had always felt too much, a flaw he had learned to bury under layers of serene composure. He was an anomaly among his own kind. And this human, with her scarred hands and seeing eyes, had perceived the shape of the anomaly through the armor. "I must go," he said, but the words had no force. They were a recitation of an obsolete program. "I know," she said again. She didn't move to stop him. She simply stood, offering her truth, her disruption, as a gift with no expectation. It was the most terrifying and beautiful thing he had ever witnessed. He looked at the airlock, then at the ship, his future, a straight line back to a gray, harmonious silence. He looked at her, standing in her honest, messy, luminous humanity, offering a different path, one of terrifying, beautiful noise. His heart was not nearly stopping now. It was hammering a wild human drumbeat against his ribs. It was shouting something his careful mind was still struggling to hear. He let his pack slide from his shoulder. It hit the deck with a soft, final thud. The action was small, but in the silent space between them, it was a detonation. Her breath caught. "My report," he said, his voice rough with unfamiliar emotion, "will be incomplete." A hope, fragile and fierce, bloomed on her face. "Oh? It will require further study," he continued, taking a step toward her, not away from the airlock. "A long-term observational analysis of human emotional paradigms. of loud loneliness. The methodologies are untested. She was crying properly now, but she was smiling, a radiant sunrise of a smile that warmed the cold umbilical. That sounds like a very important project. It is, he whispered, now standing before her. He reached out, a movement that felt both alien and utterly natural, and his fingers brushed the tear from her cheek. The touch sent a current through him, a connection more profound than any data link. It may take a lifetime. She placed her hand over his, her skin warm against his cooler touch, her scars mapping a history of healing onto his unmarked palm. "We're good with our hands," she said, her voice thick. "We can fix things. We can build things. Even futures." Outside, the freighter Odyssey's run detached, its thrusters flaring as it began its journey to the jump point. It carried his bag, his old identity, his expected life. It dwindled to a speck against the starfield. Inside, in the quiet hub of the docking corridor, a new experiment began. It was not about treaties or trade. It was about the quiet space between two heartbeats, the silent understanding that passes when hands are held, and the profound, universe-altering disruption of a simple, honest question asked at the right time. The station hummed on around them, indifferent. But in that small, circular room where two paths had converged, a harmony of a different kind was being composed, note by fragile, courageous note. It was a harmony that embraced the dissonance, that found its music not in perfect silence, but in the shared, brave noise of two lonely souls choosing to be lonely no more.